Well, we all knew this video was coming eventually. I think the title's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to be ranking all the tracks within Mario Kart World. Obviously, we won't be counting the intermission tracks because there's absolutely no way I'm playing all of them and ranking them. I'm also going to count the Crown City and Peach Stadium variants as one track just for simplicity and because they aren't really different enough changes to warrant separate spots on the list. With all that said, let's go. Number 30, Koopa Troopa Beach. As much as they did to revamp this track visually, it doesn't change the fact that it's just a circle. SNES tracks are never easy to remake because of how simplistic they are. I do, however, really like that the track has a beach party vibe to it now. I think that's a genius idea. Even if they can't make the track itself interesting, at least they have some cool tune-ups aesthetically. The one thing I do find weird about this track, though, is its name. In Super Mario Kart, this track was called Koopa Beach. Koopa Troopa Beach was the track from Mario Kart 64. It's not a big deal or anything, I just find the change odd. Number 29, Mario Bros. Circuit. The first track in each Mario Kart is never anything too special. Mario Bros. Circuit isn't very appealing and has almost nothing going on. But as I said, this is the first track in the game, so all it's meant for is getting used to the controls. There's small sections for you to get used to rail grinding and a cool shortcut you can take to spice up the track just a little bit. But once you've gotten good at the game, you're not really going to be itching to come back here. Number 28, Mario Circuit. At first glance, you might think this is just the millionth SNES Mario Circuit remake, but it's actually the millionth and first, and millionth and second. This Mario Circuit is SNES Mario Circuit 1, 2, and 3 all in one track. While it's still plain old SNES Mario Circuit, this does make the track feel a bit more unique. It would have been cool to see Mario Circuit 4 get in on the action too, but this is still enough as it is. Number 27, Desert Hills. The visual overhaul in this track is fantastic. Desert Hills was one of the most boring looking tracks in all of Mario Kart. And while it's still not stunning by any means, it's not nearly as bland as it was before. One of my favorite new details is the nod to the Batidons from Mario Land. They're a far more unique enemy to have on this track than just Pokies. While Nintendo did do their best to make this track as interesting as possible, it is still Desert Hills at the end of the day. It's a simple desert track with minimal obstacles. Number 26, Boo Cinema. There were a few tracks we saw in the trailers that looked fantastic, but quite a few of them turned out to be complete stinkers. This was definitely one of them. Don't get me wrong, the atmosphere of Boo Cinema is spot on, but that's kind of it. The track is just boring. There's no real obstacles in your way, and there's just so many missed opportunities with this one. For starters, not enough of the track takes place in the actual movie portion. The theater itself isn't all that appealing, so why does most of the track take place here? The movie section is visually more pleasing, but it could also use some more detail. When it comes to haunted themed places in Mario, anything goes, so they really could add an infinite number of things to make this segment feel more like an actual movie. I hope Nintendo takes another shot at a movie themed track in the future, cause there really is a lot of potential with this concept. Number 25, Great Question Block Ruins. I don't really have a whole lot to say about this track. I just find it very meh. The obstacles aren't all that interesting, the atmosphere isn't that appealing. There's just not much going on here. Normally I like Ruins themed tracks, but there's just so many other tracks that did it better than this one. Number 24, Salty Salty Speedway. This track is also kinda meh. Again, there's just not a whole lot going on. The main appeal of this track is the visuals, and I do have to admit they look pretty damn beautiful. But that's kinda it for me. I think with the new driving on water mechanic, a track inspired by Venice makes a ton of sense, but it's also kind of limited on what you can do with it. Number 23, Starview Peak. This track was another one that let me down when I played it. I've always wanted a Mario Galaxy themed track in Mario Kart. Sure, there's Rosalina's Ice World, but that just had a few Mario Galaxy elements. I wanted one that took full inspiration from the series, and I thought we were finally gonna get it. But this track feels more like Ice Ice Outpost with a water section. There are a few elements taken from the Comet Observatory like the Lumas, but aside from that and maybe the Star Rings, nothing here really says Mario Galaxy. The track itself isn't even that fun. Other than a few speed boosts, you're really just driving on a normal track. Number 22, Faraway Oasis. This track's fairly solid. It's a lot of water sections with some rail grinding mixed in. Once again, the main selling point for this track is its atmosphere. There's lots of animals running around on the sides of the track to make this feel like a safari. The feeling is captured very well, especially when you're driving towards this track in Grand Prix. But like the other tracks in this game, more should have been put into the track itself rather than the atmosphere. Imagine how cool it would be if the animals ran onto the track at one point, or if they were running towards you and you had to weave out of the way to avoid being hit. Too many of the tracks in this game suffer from all the effort being put into what's around you, but not what's actually in front of you. Number 21, Crown City. I love the vibe of this track, especially in free roam. This is one of the most detailed tracks in the game and I love it. There's lots to enjoy here, like driving on rooftops overlooking the city, relaxing at the beach, and even driving on the Mushroom Kingdom's version of the Golden Gate Bridge. As one of the first tracks in this game, it's not very hard and comes off a little on the simpler side in actual races, but the detail put into this track does have to be appreciated. Number 20, Drybone's Burnout. I think it's really cool that Drybone's got a track themed around him. And not only that, but we finally have a lava track that isn't a Bowser track. Well, besides Grumble Volcano. The energy around this track is great. The track also takes slight inspiration from Mexican culture, which is a nice touch. My only complaint here is that this track is on the easier side. Normally when you think of lava levels, you expect them to be hard. I do, however, like that this is one of the few tracks across Mario Kart to offer several paths to take. Granted, they all lead pretty much in the exact same direction, but it's something different nonetheless. Number 19, Dandelion Depths. This track is pretty bland. You basically just drive above ground, then in an underground pond for like 15 seconds, then above ground again. But there's one reason why I have this track ranked better than some of the previous tracks on this list. When you're driving through the underground section, you get to constantly trick off the water at top speed, which is really satisfying. I'm a simple creature. Number 18, Wario's Galleon. So, first off, something interesting about this track. So, I'm Canadian, so we usually just get the American version of each Nintendo game here. This means that when Mario Kart 7 was released, this track was called Wario Shipyard here. But for whatever reason, the version of Mario Kart World Nintendo decided to localize here calls this track Wario's Galleon. I'm just gonna call it Wario's Galleon because, I don't know, Canada or something. Anyway, that's my anecdote for the day. Considering you don't drive underwater anymore in this game, this track is very different. Rather than having a bunch of underwater sections, now you drive over the water and trick off all the waves. I actually don't mind this change, since it feels far more fast-paced. I could understand the argument for why it's worse, but that's just me personally. I just find underwater tracks in Mario Kart aren't usually that interesting. But they still should have added more to compensate for the loss of content with this track. Number 17, Cheep Cheep Falls. Another water-themed track. This track takes inspiration from Japanese culture, which makes it stand out a bit more. Most of the track has you driving down a waterfall, so the track itself moves pretty fast. There's lots of debris and rocks to trick off in the water. Getting good at this track will take a few playthroughs to get a feel for its pacing and layout, but I wouldn't necessarily describe it as challenging either. This track is far from mind-blowing, but it is a solid experience. Number 16, Moo Moo Meadows. This is the one track I wasn't too impressed with visually, if I'm being honest. I personally think Mario Kart 8's rendition of Moo Moo Meadows is far more stunning than this game's, but maybe that's just me. Speaking of which, why did they include this track that was already in Mario Kart 8? If they wanted a track to make Cow feel less out of place, they could have given Moo Moo Farm a remake instead. Although Moo Moo Meadows is the better of the two, so I'm not going to complain. Not much is different here, it's just the same old Moo Moo Meadows. It's an okay experience with no glaring issues, but it's far from the best. Number 15, Peach Stadium. Am I the only one who thought this track looked phenomenal in the trailer? It doesn't matter, cause turns out I was wrong. I do think this track is a little underrated, but I'm still ranking it near the middle of the list for a reason. I think it's cool that Peach's Castle is the main focus of a track, but I think it'd be a lot cooler if we could maybe drive on top of the castle as part of the track, or maybe even have some Mario 64 elements thrown in as well. What I do like about this track is that the difficulty is cranked up ever so slightly. Mostly with this section where the road narrows and all the pipes you have to avoid in general can make things a bit hard too. Obviously none of this would make me label this track as hard, but it is a step in that direction. Number 14, Whistle's Top Summit. This track is the ultimate tutorial for rail grinding. You have long stretches where you can learn how to trick off them, and if you're not comfortable doing that yet, you can just ride them the length of the track. Aside from the odd train, you really won't have much getting in your way, so it's a fun track for learning the mechanics of the game. The visuals on this track are also gorgeous. Number 13, Sky High Sunday. I'm glad Nintendo took a second shot at this track, because they really did improve it by quite a bit. I still wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of it or anything, but I can definitely get behind some of the changes they made. For starters, the graphics just look so much crisper. Everything looks so much more vibrant and delicious. Secondly, the rail grinding sections make this track far more enjoyable. I never understood why you could just sort of phase through the rails in Mario Kart 8, so changing them to a rail grinding section makes a ton more sense. There was just something that felt unfinished about the version of Mario Kart 8, but this one feels far more put together. Number 12, Wario Stadium. We finally got the remake, and it was so worth the wait. Wario Stadium was the last track from Mario Kart 64 that had yet to get a remake in a modern Mario Kart game. And I'm so glad Nintendo waited until now to do it. In Mario Kart 64, this track was just bumpy, and that was kind of it. But now that Mario Kart World lets you trick off of absolutely everything, including the freaking air, this track is so much more fun. I may be rating it a little too highly, but I just find it so gratifying tricking non-stop. Number 11, Peach Beach. At first this track seemed just as good as it did in Double Dash, but then it pulls a booster course pass on you and has you take a totally different direction for laps 2 and 3. I love when Nintendo does this with their remakes. As the track goes on, there's more and more things to trick off, and the graphics here are as beautiful as I'd hoped. Absolutely no complaints here. Number 10, Dino Dino Jungle. The redesign for the dinosaurs took me a little while to get used to, but they actually look a lot better to me. They just look so much more unique and expressive. It sort of gives this track new life in a way. I also love how you can rail grind on one of their backs. That's too funny. It's really cool how they redesigned this section as well to look like a lab. Kinda gives Jurassic Park vibes. Dino Dino Jungle isn't the most exhilarating track you'll ever play, but this revamp went all out and I can appreciate that. Number 9, DK Pass. This track's always a good time. Whether it's the giant snowballs, or the section where you're just tricking off all the bumps in the road, or the big cliff at the end, this track is filled with excitement. I am a little upset they took out the one item box that would always give you triple mushrooms or a star, considering how iconic it was, but I'll get over it. It's still DK Pass at the end of the day. Number 8, Shy Guy Bazaar. I've always thought this was a unique track, so I'm happy to see it get a remake. Not a whole lot has changed here, but I don't think that was necessary. However, I do think the added grind rails are a nice touch, of course. Overall, this track isn't hectic or crazy or anything like that, but I think it's highly underrated, and I think it deserves to be where it is on the list. Number 7, Choco Mountain. I was surprised to see this track return since we got it in the Booster Course Pass. But at the same time, holy crap does it look nice. A lot of people don't seem to like Choco Mountain's new look, but I think it's fantastic. The mud is now somewhat passable for chocolate. I mean, we all still know it's mud, but it's still something. The charge and chucks can be a little hard to get used to your first few times playing, but I think they really add to the difficulty and help liven up the track. I also like how you can start sinking into parts of the mud now, so you gotta be careful of where you're driving. The added difficulty makes this track feel far more interesting. It also makes sense that it'd pick up in difficulty considering the track appears in the second to last cup of the game. It's incredible seeing how different a track can look and feel in the span of only 3 years. Wait, 3 years since the Booster Course Pass? Never mind, I'm just really old now. Number 6, Acorn Heights. This track doesn't necessarily stand out a ton, but I think it is one of the more challenging tracks in the game. There's a section where you get to rail grind off leaf stems, but it can be easy to accidentally go off-road by tricking the wrong way. There's also these acorns that begin to fall near the end of the lap, and they can be kind of hard to avoid if you're not careful. This track is far from revolutionary, but it does a great job of setting the tone for the Special Cup. Number 5, Bowser's Castle. This Bowser's Castle is pretty solid. It certainly isn't the best one we've gotten, but there's lots to love about it. This track is really fast-paced, especially when you get to the storm clouds. The electricity from the track makes your car speed up insanely fast, making it hard to control. And you also gotta watch out for the falling meteors as well. That's right, meteors. And I love that Bowser statue looming over this segment of the track. It's so ominous. I think this track could have benefited from a more intense section similar to the ones in Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart 8, but otherwise, it does its job really well. Number 4, Toad's Factory. Another remake we've been waiting for. Once again, this remake goes hard. Toad's Factory remains mostly the same, just with a few added grind rails and stuff, but that's all it needed. I can't believe it took this long for the track to be remade. With all the clever obstacles found within this track, it easily takes a spot in the top 5. Number 3, Airship Fortress. You can't go wrong with Airship Fortress. Once again, it remains mostly the same, but with a few added grind rails. This has always been one of my all-time favorite tracks, so it's incredible having it in this game. And graphically, it's stunning too. I'm glad they were able to show off this track to its full potential. Number 2, DK Spaceport. Believe it or not, I've always wanted to see Nintendo turn the Donkey Kong arcade game into a Mario Kart track, but I've never really been able to figure out a way for it to work. While Nintendo's version isn't without its kinks, it's one of the most gratifying and unique tracks in all of Mario Kart. Each lap throws more and more Donkey Kong themed obstacles at you, and by the time you get to the final lap, there's an enormous DK robot throwing barrels at you to symbolize the actual arcade game. And once you get past him, you just glide away from it all like a boss. Pretty much my only issue with this track is that you're basically driving in a straight line the entire time, but that's a fairly minor one. Otherwise, this track is virtually perfect. Number 1, Rainbow Road. I was in shock the first time I played this Rainbow Road. It blew my mind. You go from a river in outer space, to a space station, to flying across the galaxy. It's unbelievable. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think this is my new favorite Rainbow Road. I don't want to say that just because it's new, but I've given it a lot of thought. Mario Kart 7's Rainbow Road will always hold an incredibly special place in my heart. But the effort put into Mario Kart World's Rainbow Road is immaculate. And my favorite part about it is how it pulls elements from all the Rainbow Roads that came before it. You have the Rainbow Thwomps from SNES Rainbow Road, the train from N64 Rainbow Road, a space station like in Mario Kart 8. The list goes on. They went so hard with this. I get the issue people have with this track not being very difficult, but I just don't care. It's too perfect. As good as ending with a challenge is, ending with this masterpiece is even better. And that's every track in Mario Kart World ranked. Overall, this game has a very solid selection of tracks, but I definitely think a few more could really tie the game together and make it feel more complete. I would also like to see future tracks have an increase in difficulty, as I found a lot of the tracks in this game were definitely on the easier side. But maybe that's just me. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing. It really means a lot to me and helps the channel grow. Okay, that's it. Bye.